Fala, Bills Mafia, Fernandoschmude aqui mais uma vez com mais um Lead in the Charge, episódio 33 para falar de Bills e Jets, mas para falar também de playoffs, falar da temporada toda do Buffalo Bills, expectativas para os playoffs. E eu tenho comigo hoje o Anthony Prohaska aqui do Cover One, né, que está comigo para bater esse papo, ele que já era para estar aqui faz tempo e sempre um imprevisto. Mas eu vou começar, como vocês já viram, com o Eric, com outros participantes. Eu vou começar então em inglês a primeira parte com ele, a primeira meia horinha, e depois eu troco essa ideia em português, traduzo aí o que a gente conversou e respondo também as perguntas. Fiquem à vontade para mandar perguntas aqui no chat. E você que está vendo em outro momento, depois também pode ficar à vontade para mandar as perguntas na área de comentários do YouTube, beleza? Hey, Ant, what's up, man? Glad to have you here finally.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And obrigado por me receber. Estou animado por estar aqui.
Awesome. That's perfect, man. You are already beating Eric because you started with Portuguese. So Eric was like just a quick cameo in the end, so he'll need to get better the next time he gets back here.
Thank you. My wife is Dominican. She speaks Spanish, so I'm decently good. I'm pretty good with Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah.
Not the same, but there's some similarities.
Yeah,
so I translated a little bit. I looked in, but yeah, I definitely looked up how to say that, wrote it down.
Awesome.
And then, thank you for having me.
Okay, you go. It's awesome to have you here. It's a pleasure. And let's start with this background because since you talked about your wife being Dominican, are you from Buffalo? How did you become a Bills fan? Because for us, it's a choice. We talked briefly about soccer before getting on, and it was the way you were talking about soccer is so similar about me learning football at young age in the 90s. Like. I was a 6-year-old kid watching the Super Bowl and watching Thurman running around and making people look silly. And the Charging Buffalo, they had helmets, the blue jerseys. I was in love with that team, So that's why I became a Bills fan. And you talking about soccer and Barcelona, it was so similar. So let me know about your fandom with the Bills. How did you start?
Sure. I was born and raised in Buffalo.
Nice.
From the time I can remember, everyone in the family has always talked about the Bills, right? So I grew up in the 90s, and all the adults in the family, like you've got like older generations tell stories about war, like people who fought in my grandpa fought in World War II, or my uncle or dad fought in Vietnam. The war stories that I grew up with were yeah, I went to the Super Bowl where the Bills lost to the Giants,
Yeah.
I have family who went to the Bills-Oilers playoff game. They left early, but then tried to get back in when they came back. I have family who traveled for every Bills Super Bowl and they lost each one. So it's always been very ingrained in my family. And so, yeah, I've been a Bills fan for probably as long as I can remember. The Music City Miracle against Tennessee broke my heart, and I've been here ever since. It's been rough. It's nice that they're, a little better now, but yeah, I've been through so much. And I think I like that you told me how you became a Bills fan, because I growing up at that time when you saw Thurman and how you became a Bills fan, was there would there games on every week, or was it just the Super Bowl that you would see?
No. Yeah, only the Super Bowl on TV here, right? It was the very beginning of football here in Brazil being broadcasted. We didn't understand anything. We couldn't understand nothing, and it was the very much the beginning, and only Super Bowls were in TV. Then later the playoffs, and it started to grow. Nowadays we have a huge fan base, football fan base here in Brazil. In the 2000s, it grew a lot, and unfortunately too many Patriots fans, and now Bills Mafia is growing here, so it's important to keep going with or leading the charge. That's why I always try to bring you guys here and to create content in Portuguese too, because Bills Mafia is growing now, and it's good to see. Mostly of our fan base is from people who raised in the 90s, who had a small touch with the Super Bowl teams, and then grew with this difficult era that you mentioned, right?
Oh man, yeah, it was so bad not making the playoffs for so long, and especially too, like growing up, all I knew was how good the Bills were in the early 90s in the 4 straight Super Bowls, and Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith. So then as I started to grow up, like, and I'm little, I'm thinking, okay, the Bills are like always great. They're always in the playoffs. They're super good. And then they lose in 99 to Tennessee, and then they don't make the playoffs again. And so I was just so confused with how, like, I was like, but they're always so good. I don't understand. And it just got worse and worse. And it's funny, you mentioned how you became a Bills fan. One of my buddies is Colombian, and he's from Colombia. And when he started watching football was the late 90s, early 2000s. So his favorite team is the Patriots, because that's what would get shown in Colombia. It would either be Patriots, or at that time was around the Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk Rams team. So the games that would get shown would be the Rams and then the Patriots games. So he likes the Rams and then he loves the Patriots. I'm just like, oh, of course. Like, you start watching football and you like a team, and then they just have a 20-year run where they're a dynasty, and we're over here suffering because we can't win. It's tough, man.
Yeah, man. And even I needed even to hear from my wife something like, oh, Tom Brady is Brazilian because he's married to Gisele. So it sucks, man. It's awful. It's awful because, oh, I need to root for Tom Brady because he's sort of Brazilian. I'm like, oh my goodness.
No, I get what she's trying to do. I like where her head's at, but yeah, no.
Then the scandal about Tom Brady with the other woman, and they married, and my wife is, no, I don't like Tom Brady anymore. He betrayed Gisele. And I'm like, oh, now I don't care about Tom Brady anymore too. He's not on the Patriots team anymore. So, but it's all right, man. So let's start talking a little bit about the season before talking this Jets game, because yes, it is important, but just a moment for this. We had great expectations. I think we still have before the season, but we still have now. And how did it change, or did it change for you before the games were played, before the start of the year, and at this point of the season, with all games played, with all we've seen from this team throughout the season, did it change? And for you, the expectations for this team going forward, or are you more worried about this team, or less confident, something like that? How's it going for you?
I'm a little less confident than before the season started. I did a season prediction episode, and I thought we'd lose to the Chiefs, but we didn't. I thought we'd lose to Tennessee. I thought we'd lose to the Colts. I thought we'd lose one game to the Patriots. So some of the losses that we had, I had kind of predicted. So I wasn't like distraught or worried when we've lost certain games, but I didn't think we'd lose to Pittsburgh. I didn't think we'd lose to Jacksonville. The way we lost to the Colts was a little, heartbreaking. And I think that's why I'm a little less confident now than I was before the season started, because the Bills were so good last year. But I knew coming into this year, teams would adjust with how good Josh Allen was and that Bills offense was. I knew defenses would start to do some different things. I thought the Bills defense would be better, but then I thought defenses for other teams would be better against the Bills. I just didn't expect it to be that much of a switch. I didn't think defenses would change so drastically and start playing so much more zone and playing less man and playing with two safeties up top and not going single high. And then with the Bills offense, I thought the offensive line was like average, middle. They could be good sometimes. They could be bad. I didn't expect this much inconsistency, where sometimes it's like, oh, they're really bad. And then sometimes it's like, oh, they look pretty good. And then it's, oh no, they look really bad. So there's certain areas on this team on the defensive side, the run defense still worries me a little bit. So there's certain pieces of this team that are worse than I thought they would be. But overall, I'm not like, if my confidence coming into the year, I was at like an 8. Right now, I'm at like a 7, 6.5, 7. But the good news is going into the playoffs, every single team in the AFC has something just like the Bills. Everybody's got something that they should be worried about. That's bad. That's a hole. That's a weakness. So they're not in any different boat really than anyone else. But yeah, a little less confident than before the season started.
Yeah, it feels like everything or anything can happen, right, in the playoffs with these AFC teams, because it's so a lot of, like, the Bengals are up and coming, but it's not like they don't have their flaws, and we don't know which team can get hot in the playoffs, right? Maybe between those teams, so it's really difficult to preview. And I agree. I'm sort of like you, because I was very confident before the season started. I thought they would lose one of the games between Chiefs and Titans. I thought they would lose. They would split these games, all right? And yeah, like I said, I predicted some of these losses too, but not the results, but the way they lost was the most worrisome thing.
Yeah,
all right?
it's because you can lose and be like, oh, okay, like we lost, but there's just
Yeah,
been certain losses that you're just like, oh, that was a bad loss, and the way we lost is not good going forward. And yeah, it that you said it's spot on. It's the way that they lost that was like, oh, and yeah, it's crazy with this AFC. Like if you told me, if we fast forward and the Bills are in the Super Bowl, or the Chiefs, or the Titans, or the Colts, or honestly, like even the Bengals. Like there's so many teams in the AFC that I wouldn't be surprised. Like I wouldn't be shocked. It's not like, oh man, no. There's only 1 or 2 teams that can make it. It's
yeah.
so wide open because everybody's got some really good strengths and everybody's got some really bad weaknesses, and you just got to see how it balances out.
Absolutely. And I've been told people here, Brazilian Bills Mafia, about the 3 main topics that really worries me about this team, right? And the first one has been the hole in the offensive line at the guard spot, right? Because I like Dion Dawkins a lot, right? I don't think he's awesome. I don't think he's Pro Bowl material every year, but I think he's really good. At his best, he's really good, all right? And we can't ignore the COVID stuff and these kind of things. It's difficult to deal with, right? But I like Dion Dawkins. I really like Mitch Morse, all right? Spencer Brown has been impressive, and he has the tools. He has the tools to become great, right? And Darryl Williams, I think he's solid. He's a solid pro, all right? And you can trust him to do a decent job. But I'm not really confident in Feliciano, never been, all right? And Ike Boettger is meh, in my opinion, all right? He's like that guy, in my opinion, from afar. It's difficult to say, but he seems to me, I played in soccer with these kind of guys, the guys who fans look at and say, how is this guy playing? He sucks. He's awful. But the guys do everything the coaches want, you know? He does everything the way the coach wants it done, you know? So he always plays. He plays over more talented people, right? When I see Ike Boettger and when I see Eric's breakdown about Coach Bobby Johnson showing film and using Boettger as an example, I remember this, you know? It's always like, oh, Boettger is that guy. I remember one of my teammates, okay, to be fair. And Boettger is that guy. He does everything the coaches want, you know? So, but still not good enough, all right? And you had this hole in the guard spot, and I was even critical on Bean of not trying to fix it during the trade deadline, because, okay, they bet in the off season, bringing the band back together, right? Continuity and all this is good stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And this way, it didn't work. So I was critical on Bean of not upgrading during the deadline, trying to bring a guard. Maybe he tried, we don't know for sure, right? But now I'm confident with Bates. I've been
Mhm.
hyped on Bates for a quite long time. All right, and he's been pretty good
Yeah.
actually playing, and it asks the question about why isn't he getting an opportunity
Mm.
before, but yeah, the offensive line is the main issue for me because it showed this year against Pittsburgh, against Jacksonville, that they can really impact the way Josh Allen play and they can
Yeah.
kill our offensive flow. So how confident are you in Bates now in our offensive line going forward? Do you think Bean could have upgraded? How do you see this situation with the offensive line?
Sure. I'll start with Bates, like you mentioned. I liked what he's done, his athleticism, his strength, and I was thinking the same thing as you. Like he's been around for a decent amount of time, and we've never really seen him get the starting opportunity. So I was like, what's going on? Why is he not getting a shot? He would come in a little bit, when they'd go with those bigger sets, and he'd play like the second tight end role as an extra offensive lineman on the field. But since he's come in, once Bodker got hurt, I really liked what he's done. Again, that athleticism and the strength. He's been a nice, piece that's kind of been like an addition, even though he's been on the team, but it's been a nice piece. But I feel very much the same as you coming into this year. I wanted upgrades at the offensive line at the guard spot specifically, either in free agency or the draft last year. In the first 3 rounds of the draft, I wanted a defensive end or edge rusher, which we got twice with Rousseau and Basham. I wanted another corner, which we didn't take. And then I wanted an interior offensive lineman, so a guard, which we did not get. But I wasn't too down on it because I was like, okay, you know what? I don't like Feliciano, but he'll be okay. I don't like Cody Ford, but maybe he can step up and be okay.
I had
And
hopes. I had high hopes for him. I still
yeah,
believed he could. Yeah, second round pick. So
yeah, you never
you,
know. Maybe it's like the
yeah,
guy who catches on a little later. He develops a little later than everyone. He still could be good. And then in the preseason, Cody Ford looked good. And I was like, okay, we might be okay. And then the regular season hit. And especially, like you said, that first game against Pittsburgh, and everybody, Dawkins, I think to your point, I think he's always like kind of above average. I don't think he's ever going to be the best. He's never going to be the worst. He's always just like, oh, like pretty good. And he's solid.
yeah.
But I don't think he was ready to go because of COVID. And then right from that Pittsburgh game, the rest of the offensive line just got torched. Darrell Williams, Cody Ford, Feliciano, everybody looked bad up front. And I'm worried about that going forward in the playoffs. Like I like Bates, and I like how Darrell Williams has been good at times, but I'm still worried about the interior of the offensive line. And similar to you, I love Mitch Morse. Eric loves Mitch Morse. We've been talking about him for a couple of years, how much we love him. And it's such an interesting situation with his offensive line because you take Spencer Brown, right? In high school, he didn't play 11 on 11 football. He played 8 versus 8 football because they didn't have like normal football in his high school. And then he goes to the University of Northern Iowa, which, no disrespect, but they're not like a big top power. He doesn't have a ton of playing experience. He opted out last season because of COVID. So he has so much potential with the strength and the speed and the size. But I thought before the season, there was no way that he would be starting for this team. And if he was, I thought it was because like, oh, that means Darrell Williams got hurt and Cody Ford got hurt. I just figured a whole bunch of injuries happened. The fact that the line play was so bad that they had to put him into the starting lineup, I think says a lot because the plan for him, and Brandon Beane even said it before the season started, was, he would learn both tackle positions, but he would be a backup. He'd come in a little bit as the 6th offensive lineman and see some stuff, but they wanted him to sit. They wanted him to learn and understand and start to get better. And then midway through the year, it was like, no, forget that. He's got to be a starter. And it's the biggest weakness on this team for me because this team will go as far as Josh Allen goes. And if you can't protect Josh Allen, what are you going to do? And there are several teams in the AFC that have stud elite players up front. And that's what really concerns me because against a defensive line that is just kind of okay, I think the Bills line, they can be okay. But what happens if they play Cincinnati, who has Trey Hendrickson, who's fourth in sacks? Or what happens if they play the Colts again, who have DeForest Buckner? Or even with the Titans, Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. Or if they play the Chiefs again, Chris Jones didn't play the last time, and Chris Jones killed the Bills' offensive line in the AFC Championship last year. So it's my biggest weakness on this team, and it's the thing I'm most concerned about, especially when they play against teams that have elite players up front, like the Pittsburghs and teams that have like all-pro potential guys up front. That worries me a lot. It scares me.
Yeah. It kills all consistency on the offensive side, right? You don't have consistency. You can't run the ball consistently. You can't protect Josh consistently. And if you don't put points on the board and the other team can run the ball on us, Josh isn't that guy who, I always say it here, like for people in here, Josh isn't like Tyrod who can throw a check down on 3rd and 14 and get out of the field. And okay, I'm good. I'm putting the game on the hands of the defense. He never will do that, you know. So it's a difficult situation, and it goes to the second topic where I was really worried about the run defense. How worried are you about the run defense? And because I think it's being a philosophical thing dealing with the McDermott's defense. It's not the first time we've seen teams running on us, and when it happens, that's my biggest issue. You know, we can stop the run. This team can stop the run. They are ranked pretty high on defending the run game. But when teams can run on us, it gets ugly. You know, it's been this way, like with the Saints before. Years ago, with the Chargers,
with Kamara and Ingram both went off.
With the Chargers, Melvin Gordon once, and even the Jets. I think there was a game the Jets run the ball all the time, and we couldn't stop the run. And this year again against the Colts. So I think McDermott never will be like, oh, we need to stop the run first. No, he wants to have that elite pass defense, and I'm okay with that because that's the NFL of today. The passing game is obviously first place, but we need to avoid this awful rushing defensive game. You know, can we avoid it for like 3-4 straight games and win the Super Bowl?
It's a concern for me, and I love that you mentioned, you know, like the style of McDermott's defense, because I think that's where everything starts, right? You know, even the lineup, Taron Johnson is a starter. So the Bills are a nickel defense. They only have 2 linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. So you don't have like heavier guys. You don't have a third linebacker because Taron Johnson starts. Then another piece after that, they don't like to put a lot of people in the box around the line of scrimmage. So usually it's just the 4 defensive linemen, Edmonds and Milano, maybe Taron Johnson's around there. So maybe you have 7, but they don't really stack the box. They go with lighter boxes. And when you do that, combined with being a nickel defense and having a light box, you've got to be so on point with how you defend the run. You have to make sure that, you know, if you're taking the A gap and I'm taking the B gap, you have to take the A gap. I have to take the B gap. If somehow you take the B gap, I have to read that and I have to go take the A gap. There's so many moving parts. And when you play teams like the Colts and even the Patriots who run those type of gap runs or those power runs where they're pulling offensive linemen and switching things and using misdirection, if you get caught up, if you're Tremaine Edmonds or you're Matt Milano, you're a half second too late, or if you're Jordan Poyer coming down from the safety spot and you make a slight misread, you see these big runs like we saw with Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor, big runs, the Patriots, Damian Harris with the big runs, the first game, even the second game, Derrick Henry, there you go. Like those runs that just hit and are fast. And also another piece of this defense up front, they're not very big. Star Lotulelei is the biggest guy, but he's not like he's even
smaller this year, right?
Yeah,
I've said this. He looks like a 3 technique now.
Yeah,
this year. Yeah,
and he's shown that. He's shown more pass rush ability because he lost some weight. He slimmed down, and so your starting defensive tackles really are Star Lotulelei and Ed Oliver, and Starr is supposed to be a 1 tech, but he looks like a 3. Ed is a 3. He can't play 1. Harrison Phillips has been nice, but he's not huge and a big run stuffer. And that's the style of their defensive line. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane want defensive linemen who can play 1 gap, who can penetrate, who can be aggressive, move fast, get through the hole, and pressure the quarterback. And if they can make some tackles for loss in the run game, that's cool. But you made a good point earlier. You said, in today's NFL, the Bills defense is built for today's NFL. They're designed to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Teams that want to pass a lot, maybe they'll run here and there, but they're designed to play teams that are going to pass the ball all over. So when they face a team that can use an old school power run, like the Colts, like the Patriots, like the Tennessee Titans, it's a little tougher for them. So it's one of those things where, matchups, make the fights, and it depends on what kind of team you're going against. And, we saw, speaking about Barcelona and soccer, I saw it for years when Atletico Madrid started to turn around under Simeone, and it was like, well, Barca wants to keep the ball and keep possession. And then Atletico was like, that's fine. We'll just park the bus and play defense and then counter. Yeah. So like what Barca did played into the favor of what Atletico wanted to do. And Atletico kept beating Barca. They beat them like 1-0. Barca would have like 75% possession. Atletico would get 1 chance and they'd score. And that's what scares me with the run defense. I don't think it's, like you said, it's not bad. It's not terrible. It's not a horrible run defense, but they're going to play teams that have strengths that are going to be very, very tough for the Bills to defend because of the weaknesses this defense has. And so, yeah, that interior I'm worried about. They don't have the size. They don't have the personnel to really stop those runs consistently, because they can do it from time to time. The Patriots Monday night game was a great example. They played good run defense. They forced New England to like 5 3-and-outs where they held them under 6 yards. But then there was those 3 or 4 drives, big run, big run. And that's going to happen because the combination of being a smaller defense, being a quicker, faster attacking defense, playing like boxes. When you do all that and teams run the ball effectively and are physical, you have to be on point every single time in order to be able to execute. And if you're not one time, or if you're off by a small second, boom, big run. So yeah, it's definitely worrisome. It's the reason I don't want to play the Colts. I don't want to play New England to a degree because of their run game. The passing game, I'm not worried about with Mac Jones, but the run game is good. Or even if we play Tampa Bay again, they can run the ball and they can pass. So against those teams that can run like that, it's definitely a concern.
Absolutely. And like you said about Barca, they won't change their philosophy of keeping the ball and trying to they won't change because Atletico is parking the bus, so we're gonna park in the bus too. So the Bills, McDermott isn't changing his philosophy. He's fine. You want to run on first down? Okay, that's good for me. I will try to keep it on 2-3 yards and the second down the same way. And now I'm on third down. That's what I want. I will get out of the field on third down when you need to pass, and I can stop the pass. So
exactly,
basically, McDermott's philosophy is this way, and he won't change, and it isn't wrong. But you need to keep these runs like at 3 yards or force the third down, avoid the big runs, and we've seen sometimes they couldn't. And like you said, personnel plays a big part on that, and I hope they can keep containing the run game like we've seen recently. And like I said, we saw this in previous seasons too. So they every time they could find a way to fix it and avoid it repeating itself again until the other year. So I hope so. We've seen the worst from this run defense this year, right? And,
yeah, I hope. And I think that's also a piece too, right? Like the Bills are really good at making adjustments, like sometimes in the game. So like halftime adjustments, but also game to game. So I think if the Bills do play the Colts again, I don't think you'll see the Colts be as successful in the run game. I think the Bills will adjust. They'll be able to mitigate some of those weaknesses. I think they'll be able to, lessen the Colts run game. But yeah, you nailed it. This is something we've seen for several years. This is how Sean McDermott wants to build his defense. This is how, Frazier is okay with that. This is what Brandon Beane believes in as well. Like we're going to keep seeing it through the draft. Like there might be, in the draft, I really liked Odafe Owe, who went to the Baltimore Ravens, and I liked Joe Tryon, who went to Tampa Bay. They both got taken right after Gregory Rousseau. I like them both more than Greg Rousseau, but the kind of defensive end that Sean McDermott wants, Greg Rousseau fits that mold better. So it doesn't matter if you think, this guy is better than Greg Rousseau or that guy's better than Greg Rousseau. It doesn't matter because Rousseau fits what he wants. And a lot of Bills fans, we keep seeing it like, oh, they need to get like a really big one tech or a really big defensive tackle and put him in the center and this and that. Sean McDermott doesn't want to do that. They want lighter guys. They want to attack. They want to penetrate. And what's frustrating, we're going to see that fluctuation, right? Like you'll see a run where the Bills on first down stop it for like a 1 yard loss or no gain. And you're like, oh, that looks great. And then like 4 runs later, it's like, boom, 25-yard run, because that's the style of defense they had. And they're going to make explosive plays in a good way. And they're going to give up explosive plays in a bad way. And you're just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and the last point about that worries me a little bit, Anthony, and I really I wasn't expecting to be worried about it, but because the last few years it's been a point of security for us, but the changes in personnel also plays a part in that. Special teams has made some pretty big mistakes this year. And in the worst possible times, we've seen my special teams decide the game against the Steelers, or at least kill our chance of coming back. That punt blocked. We've seen my special teams mistake put the Washington football team back in the game they had no business in being in. And thank God our offense was playing awesome, and we scored again, and didn't give a chance to Washington. We've seen my special team penalty kill return by McKenzie against the Titans that could have won that game. We've seen a mistake by McKenzie cost us too with that fumble. So against the Colts, right, and killing our chances too.
Marcus Stevenson had the fumble last week against the Falcons that leads to the safety.
Yeah, so it's been happening quite a lot, and we usually never had this problem with Andrew Roberts, who was a security blanket. He had one mistake, I think, in 3 years. And okay, we lost the big play opportunity with Roberts. That's why it kind of sucks now to see him getting it back for the Chargers, right?
Yeah, he scored last week. He looked great.
Yeah. But how worried are you with these special teams being prone to? They aren't bad. I don't think they aren't bad. I think they are still pretty good, but they are prone to big mistakes, big time mistakes, right? So how worried should we be with this kind of stuff happening in the playoffs, especially with bad weather playing a part?
Oh, that's a good point. I think you're right to have it below the run defense and below the offensive line, but there is some reason for concern. I'd even throw, Matt Hawk, the punter, into that as well. I love the job he does as a holder, and he's had some moments where he really great punt, like 60 yards. You're like, wow. And then another moment where he kicks like a 25-yarder and shanks it off his foot. He's had that inconsistency. That worries me. And the return game, you nailed it. Like when Isaiah McKenzie was the returner, once he got the ball in his hands, I loved it. He's fast. He's explosive. He's electric. I like it. Similar with Marcus Stevenson. When he gets the ball, fast, electric, explosive. But getting the ball is what concerns me. The physical act of catching it and not fumbling. Or even
Leodis McKelvin vibes, man.
Oh, against New England in that season opener when he don't do that. That's so terrible. Yeah. Oh, that took me back to such a bad mental spot. I was so upset.
Sorry.
No, you're
I couldn't help myself.
No, you're fine. But do you know, real quick, a little story? Do you know what Bills fans did to his house after that?
Oh,
yeah,
my
they were
goodness.
like vandalizing his house and fires in the lawn, just terrible stuff. McKelvin vibes. And yeah, that's what you kind of have a little bit. Like Andre Roberts, I think what was such an underestimated piece of his game was the decision making and the ball security. Like when he went up to catch it, he caught it. If he let it bounce, it was the right decision. If he came up and made a fair catch, it was the right decision. The decision making and the ball security, it's definitely a concern for me. And it's not the top, but I think it's there because, to your point, it can change games completely. What happens if last week against Atlanta, what if the Bills don't recover that fumble? And what if Atlanta recovers it and it's a touchdown? Or it is the safety, the Bills have to punt after that, the safety kickoff. What happens if Atlanta scores again and then it's 9-0 or 10-0 or something? And if you're doing that against no disrespect to Atlanta, but if you're doing that against the better teams, you cannot do that. If you force the Chiefs to punt and then you fumble that punt return and give them the ball back, you can't do that. If you are playing the Bengals and you fumble the kickoff or the punt and you give them the ball back, the Colts, any of these good teams, you can't give them extra opportunities. And those are killer for two reasons. One, you give an extra opportunity to the other team's offense, and then you take the ball away from Josh Allen. You take that out of his hands. He loses a possession. So it's not at the top of my list, like you said, but I think it's a very fair concern. And the weather point is a great point. Wherever the Bills play, unless that they're not going to play in Indianapolis, knock on wood, but anywhere they go is going to be outdoors. Kansas City's going to have bad weather. Cincinnati's going to have bad weather. New England, all of these teams. Buffalo is going to have bad weather. Tennessee, anything. So wherever they go, there's going to be wind. There could be rain. There could be snow. So the ball security and the decision-making gets even harder. And I'm definitely concerned about it. And Matt Hawk's, punting consistency as well. And I completely agree with you. The special teams are not bad. Their kickoff coverage is really good. Their punt coverage is really good. But those inconsistencies, and when they have mistakes, they're big mistakes, and that can lose you a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let me taking advantage of this commentary about weather, let me put one question here from João Paulo. He's always with us, and he's asking you about a dome. Do we want a dome? Can't make a shirt, demanding it already.
That's funny.
So, how do you feel about it, Ant? How do you feel about a dome? I think I've seen Tim Graham, I think, talking about it's being really a low possibility of a dome being built in Buffalo because of economics and stuff. But if you could make the choice, you are Pegula now, you can build whatever you want, and the state gave you all New York money. So after all, you only have one team in New York, so you can have all the money to build the stadium. And so, what's your choice? Building a dome or another regular stadium like the half? It's always be the half for me. Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I like it. You know what? It's tough. Here's the first point I want to make with the dome, right? If the Bills decide right now, hey, boom, if somebody drops off $1 billion or $10 billion in a bag of money and they say, here's money for a stadium, and they draw up the plans right now, and by the end of the day, they've got the money, they've got the plans. Boom, we can build it. We can build a dome. It's not going to be ready for like 5 years, or at the earliest, like 3 years. If everything went perfect, it would be ready in like 3 years. We don't know what kind of team we're going to be in 3 years. What if in 3 years, the Bills are still going to have Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is still going to be good? What happens if we're a really good running team? What happens if the Bills in the draft this year get two guards in the draft? And what if they get another running back, or Devin Singletary keeps progressing? What if all of a sudden they've got a good running attack? Then you don't want a dome because you have a quarterback who can throw in the open air, and you've got a running game that can be effective when there's bad weather. So my bigger thing with it is deciding to build a dome does nothing to help this team now or next year or even the year after. And when you're thinking that far in the future, we don't know what kind of team this team is going to be in 3 to 5 years from now. It could be a different focus, a different shift. I'm more concerned with Brandon Beane, who I love, and Sean McDermott as well. They've done so much, so many great things for the Bills and turning this team around and getting them to the playoffs and division championships. I'm more concerned that they built a team that is so hamstrung or handicapped by the elements this bad, because other teams are able to shift and focus. Like you have a team like, I hate to use them, but the Patriots, right? They don't have a great quarterback. They came in with the weather and the elements on that Monday night and we're like, okay, all we're going to do is just run the ball. And it worked out for them. The Colts are going to have that ability to run the ball. There's teams who have been able to make it work. The Patriots, I hate them as well. How many horrible weather games have we seen during their entire dynasty where Brady would just throw little short passes and they would run the ball with Corey Dillon or LeGarrette Blount, or how many guys they have the ability to pivot to that run? I would be more concerned. It would be nice if the Bills had a dome right now. Even today, the weather is horrible right now. It's windy. There's ice coming from the sky, not snow. It's like raining ice. The weather is not great right now. I would love to have a dome right now for these games. I think it's cool. Make everything even. You don't have to worry about the weather. That's fine. It does nothing to help us right now or even next year. And the conversation for me is more of how they built this team. And I'll take a dome for the future if the Bills are really going to continue to sell out. If Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott are saying, nope, we're always going to pass it a ton. The focus is the passing game. We want to put more money into wide receivers and pass protection. That's what we want. If that's the focus, build a dome, because I don't want to have to worry about the weather ever. But I would prefer to have a team that is varied and multiple and can do different things. Because again, the dome only helps too if you have the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. What if you don't? What if you've built a dome and you're great at home, but then you go on the road and you can't win in the weather and the elements? What happens if you go to Kansas City or Tennessee or Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or Baltimore it's raining that day? Exactly. New England, anything. Yeah. So the dome helps you a little in certain instances, but I think the conversation, I get where it comes from. I think the more important conversation is building a team that you can do different things with, building a varied and multiple team that has a pivot, that building a team that you can be like, oh, the weather's not good today. Cool. Let's run the ball and let's stop the run. Like, that's what is the bigger conversation for me.
It's a great point, Anthony, because I've been Team Dome. I can't lie to you. I've been Team Dome.
No, and I get it. It makes sense.
You make me think about it, because, like you said, for today's team, but ideally, they will fix these running game issues. They will fix the offensive line. Ideally, you have an offense that can area it out with Josh, but when they need to run, they can run effectively, right? They can impose the running game. They can be physical at the point of attack, like McDermott always says, and establish the run too. Some people are critical on Dable. They say, oh, Dable can't run the ball. Dable had pretty good rushing offense on Cleveland with Peyton Hillis. He had great rushing offense of Alabama, but Alabama is running on everybody always, right? So you can but he knows how. He comes from the New England tree where McDaniel sometimes air it out, sometimes he run the ball 50 times like we saw this year. So ideally, this problem will be fixed soon. All right, if Bean keeps doing his great work, if Dable, McDermott keep doing a great job like they are doing, it will be fixed. We'll be able to run the ball better soon, and you'll be able to figure it out. And also, every time I see Josh Allen struggling, like against the Falcons, throwing the ball in a bad weather, I'm like, oh, I would like to have a dome so we can see Josh Allen playing at his best and this kind of stuff. But you need to look at the other quarterback too, right? It isn't like Matt Ryan was killing the Bills. Right. Mac Jones couldn't even throw the ball against us. He literally couldn't throw the ball, right? And Josh can. Even if it's ugly, he can throw the ball on the weather. He almost had a big play to Diggs against New England.
New England's so close.
Yeah. So Mac Jones can dream of throwing that kind of pass in that weather. So it can be an advantage, especially if you fix the run game, right? And so it makes me think about this. I think ideally it's not my money, right? Ideally, you have a roof that you can open when you want, and
Oh yeah,
you
the
talk to
retractable roof.
you talk to McDermott before the game, and so coach, what's the game plan for today? Oh, today we're gonna air it out. So close the roof, let's air it out. Oh, this today we have a team that can't run the ball. Oh, open the roof. Let it snow. All right, but so it would be awesome, but I'm not sure how realistic it is, right?
I like that. Let's do that. I like that. Let's go with
that. All right, man. I don't want. I'm taking too much of your time. Sorry, but the conversation is so good.
You're completely fine. If you want to,
there's
questions coming in the chat. If you got
I want to ask you some of them before
I'm
talking.
Doing nothing today, but sitting home, and whenever we're done here, I'm gonna watch some film, get ready for football. I can be here for another hour or two, whatever you want to do.
Awesome, because it's awesome to have you. Thank you so much. So Marcelo,
I enjoy being here. I like you. You're a good dude. So whatever you want, you got.
Thank you, man. And I'm sure Bills Mafia is enjoying it too. That's awesome. And they are. I need to invite them to always watch the film sessions with you and Eric. I always talking about Coverman stuff because we are brothers and we are together in this, right? So
yes, we are.
And it's a great content after all. So Marcelo is asking here. Let me translate for you.
Yeah, please.
He's telling me, or you can call your wife too. You know that. Okay. Ask him, what does he think about our coaching staff? Let me just give you a background. Some people here in Brazil are really mad on Brian Daboll because they have a hashtag out Daboll because we can't run the ball. And I'm like all the time saying, come on, we've been watching teams with Shady McCoy, Fred Jackson, Marshall Lynch, Willis McGahee, Travis Henry, Sean Bryson. We all we could run the ball forever, man. We always could run the ball. A-Train. And the list goes on, right?
Yeah, way to bring it back. I like it.
Yeah, we always could run the ball, but we couldn't throw, or we were limited there. And now, okay, yes, ideally you can run the ball better than we've been doing, but I'm really happy having a pass-happy offense. I remember watching Peyton Manning making all these line calls and changing everything in there and out, and I was like, my goodness, imagine if the Bills had something like that. And now we have something sort of similar, right? And people want to run the ball. So they are mad at Daboll. I'm not saying Marcelo is this way, okay? But Marcelo asks you about all the coaching staff, because like Marcelo, I have problems with the offensive line coach, because after all, the offensive line needs to be better. All right. And he wants to know from you about what do you think about the coaching staff in general, McDermott, Fraser, Daboll, the positional coaches.
Sure. I'll start at the head. I'll start with McDermott. I really like Sean McDermott. Obviously, I mean, we talked about it in the beginning. The Bills are so bad for so long, and we've had so many, Dick Duran and Doug Marrone and Rex Ryan and Chan Gailey and all these different coaches who I didn't feel confident in them, steering the ship. And Sean McDermott comes in. We've got, I see that comment come in. Does that say, yes, I'm out for fire Daboll, or out for is that what that is?
Let me check, Marcel. I am fora Daboll. Yes, I am out Daboll. Fora Daboll is out Daboll. Yeah.
So, and then he says run, pass. So,
my goodness, run, pass. It remembers me. CJ Spiller playbook that came out a Charge, a drawing about Bill's playbook. CJ Spiller run outside.
Yeah.
2 times.
Run.
Yeah.
CJ Spiller run here. CJ pass here. Reception here. So actually, I'll go to that. So for the Daboll comment, I think what we have to think of as well is the execution of the players, right? because part of why Dable is calling what he's calling is because of the ability of the offensive line up front. I would love, I said it from the beginning of the year, I don't think we need to be like 50-50, 50% pass, 50% run. And I don't think we necessarily, like Marcelo says, I don't know if we need to be run, pass. But we need to just have enough balance, not 50-50 balance, but enough that, like we were talking about with the weather in the dome, okay, do we need to run the ball today? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's run the ball. We need to be able to do that. Or is it 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 1? Okay, cool. Can we run the ball and get a first down? And some of that maybe is on Dable with the play calling and scheme and structure, but I think a decent amount of it is on the execution up front. We do not have the offensive line that can, like if Marcelo wants to do run, pass, I think Dable would do it or consider it if we had that kind of offensive line. I don't think we do. With Feliciano, Cody Ford at guard spots, Ike Bodker, Darrell Williams having to move inside to guard, even Ryan Bates, who's been better. We're starting to see, if you've noticed the last several weeks, we're starting to see more success in the run because with Bates going in there and taking advantage of Mitch Morse's athleticism, Spencer Brown's athleticism, we're seeing more of those pin and pull runs that Eric and I keep talking about, those runs where you see Mitch Morse pulling and leading out in front, Spencer Brown leading out in front, even Darrell Williams. I think they've started to find something in the running game, and I don't want to just put it all on Dable for the failures of the run game at times, because I think a lot of it is execution based. And if you don't have the Pittsburgh game's a great example, right? And maybe it's not the best example because Pittsburgh's so good up front, but it doesn't matter what you call if nobody can block TJ Watt, or if nobody can block Cameron Hayward, or even in the Tennessee game, doesn't matter what you call if none of the guys inside can block Jeffrey Simmons, exactly, or Harold Landry. Like, it doesn't matter what you call in the run or the pass. If your players up front don't execute, they're not executing. So I think that has to be in the mind a little bit, right? Like Dable, he deserves some blame. Anytime you're the coach, it always starts with you, right? But the execution of the players and the construction of the team and the personnel, that has to be in there as well. And I think we've started to see better things from the offense these last several weeks with the run game. And I think that's a big thing for Dable too, right? Like he's made a lot of adjustments in game this year, trying to figure things out, testing different things, figuring out in the New England game, like, okay, the Patriots are playing man coverage or they're playing with one safety. Let's get Isaiah McKenzie on those deep crossers and take advantage. The second Dolphins game, they're playing a ton of man coverage and blitzing the house. Let's get Cole Beasley one-on-one and take advantage. I think he's better than people think. I think everybody, it's the expectations like we talked about in the beginning, right? I think everybody came into this year thinking Josh Allen's going to win MVP. The Bills are only going to lose 3 games. They're going to score 1 million points. And when they don't, there's frustration. So I think Dable can shoulder some blame, but I think you got to look towards a lot of the execution of the players up front, especially when it comes to the run game, because there's so many complications there. And then as far as the staff as a whole, I really like Sean McDermott. I like some of his decision-making to be better. Some of like the 4th down attempts are puzzling.
That's my point with him too, but I love his job overall. Just
same.
Love this version of McDermott that we've seen recently better than the scared or not scared, but the conservative version.
Because to your point, you mentioned it earlier, right? Like saying, in today's NFL and it's a passing league and this and that. And even with when we mentioned Marcelo's comment, when he said run, pass, and we both kind of looked at it like the numbers and the statistics and the analytics and the metrics, they show like, no, it's better to go for it on 4th down. It's better to pass on 1st down. It's better to pass on 2nd down, all these types of things. So I like that he's been a little more aggressive recently. I'm always questioning when he challenges plays. Like he has a horrible success rate on challenges. He finally won one last week, but it was his first of the year. He seems to not win those, but I like his leadership, his focus. He is the reason the culture has changed.
The discipline, right? The discipline is awesome. I love it too.
The discipline, the focus, the energy and attention to detail. I think it all starts with him. And so I love Sean McDermott. I'm very happy that we have him. Doesn't mean he's perfect, but I love having him. And then same with Leslie Frazier. I I like his leadership and his ability to call a game. He's a veteran coach. He has really great experience, so I like Frazier. Then there's a couple really position coaches I really like. I'm really excited to see what Ken Dorsey can potentially become. He's the big one, right? On offense with Dable, because I think if Brian Dable leaves to go be a head coach, I think Ken Dorsey becomes the offensive coordinator. I think he stays, and I like the potential that he has. Then there's a couple other guys, sprinkled out as well. But I like this coaching staff, and I think McDermott and Bean have done a really good job putting together a strong coaching team.
Awesome. I really love Dable. I don't want him leaving anytime soon, man, because I love his connection with Allen. I love the growth of the offense. The offense.
Yeah.
Remember the first year with Dable, it was like an historical badly offense. Just the Rosen's Cardinals was worse, and we had it was awful,
yeah, it was
and then it got better and continued to get better, and it's now a powerhouse, right? And it's like we have even with the difficulties, the awful games by the offensive lines, killing the flow of the game and not allowing our offense being at its best. It's a top 5 ranked offense. So you can't ask much better than that, So like you said,
it's that expectation. Everybody thought we'd be number 1 in this, number 1 in that, MVP this. And if you're not, then it's like, well, what's going on?
But you can't be number 1 on everything, right?
No,
That's
it's the same thing with we keep talking about on Twitter all the time, like with Tremaine Edmonds. Everybody thought he was going to get drafted and be like, oh, he got taken in the first round. He's going to Sean McDermott. He's going to be just like Luke Kuechly. He's going to be amazing. And he's been good, but because he hasn't been Luke Kuechly, everybody's like, no, he sucks and he's terrible. Like there's that expectation level, and it's going to be the same for, to keep touching it back to soccer. Messi leaves Barcelona. They give the number 10 to Ansu Fati. And the first thing that was in my head, I was like, I just hope people are not like, sweet, there's the next Messi, because one's going to reach that bar. That expectation is hard.
Man, it's interesting because I told you I played for Grêmio and Grêmio formed Ronaldinho, right? And a guy from my age called Bruno was supposed to be the next Ronaldinho, all right? Okay. We are 4 years younger than Ronaldinho, right? So when Ronaldinho was sold to PSG, Bruno was the next Ronaldinho, and it killed him. The expectations, because he wasn't a dribbler like Ronaldinho, who was more like a passer, a guy with pass, a guy of assists, not a flashy guy like Ronaldinho, but very smart, very intelligent player. But the fans wanted the next Ronaldinho. And when we saw the guy taking the ball and passing, no elasticos, no dribbles, no, not the flashy thing. They were, what? This guy is the next Ronaldinho? No way. And it killed him. He doesn't play anymore. All right. And he never was nowhere near this level. So it's really, the expectations are really difficult sometimes to deal with. And the thing with the 4th down, and just to take advantage of this opportunity, not just the analytics, but what I always been saying is the point about the player's confidence. I love what the Chargers coach did. I know it cost a game. It can cost a game for you if it doesn't work. All right. But I love the message he sent to his players. All right. It's without words, with actions. He's in Herbert's face, in Allen's face, Keenan Allen's face, Mike Williams' face, Eckler's face, the offensive line. He's like, look, I'm trusting you to win the game for me. You are the franchise quarterback. You are the 100, 200 million guy. You are the all-pro. I'm not putting this game in the hands of the rookie kicker or my defensive guys, because nobody's paid like you. You are the franchise. So I trust you to more times, more than less, you get these first downs on 4th down, get these touchdowns on 4th downs. I'm giving you the opportunity to be the guy. All right. And if I'm the quarterback, I would feel as a player very confident. I would love my coach because, okay, this coach really trusts me, right? And if I don't get these first downs, I would be really mad at myself. Like, no, I need to get it. Next time, I need to be better. All right. Because that's the expectations on me. I need to get it. The coach trusts me, the fan base, everybody. All right. I'm supposed to be the guy who gets those first downs, those touchdowns. So this aspect of the game, sometimes people don't pay attention enough, because today we have analytics, we have a lot of stuff. But as a player, I remember the first game against Pittsburgh, first home game in a while with fans on the stands, right? It was the first or the second drive. I think it was the first drive, fourth down, middle of the field. Josh Allen wanting to go for it, and McDermott was, no, come back. I was like, no, come on.
Yeah.
The momentum, all right? Your franchise quarterback is fresh from an MVP-like season. The fans are back on the stands, give this guy this opportunity. Maybe a conversion there elevates his confidence level, and he starts to play on a whole another level, so you can unlock this kind of stuff sometimes. So that's what I think when McDermott should put the game a little bit more on the offensive side of ball hands, or Josh Allen hands, even if he doesn't trust the online or it isn't working, he's a little bit afraid of mistakes by them, That's
a big piece. Like that mental side of it, like you talked about it with we were talking about with expectations, but like what happened to Bruno, like mentally that eventually gets to you, like things like that. And so confidence and your mental state and where you are, that's a big thing. And when a coach, when you're like, hey, like, no, I want to go for it. And if McDermott's like, you know what? Okay, let's go for it. You start to feel like, all right, exactly what you said. My coach trusts me. He believes in me. That type of confidence. And on the flip side of it, it can be damaging. Like if you want to go for it and you don't, and he's like, no, we're not going for it, come off the field, then it could potentially build. You're sitting there, you're like, coach doesn't listen to me. Coach doesn't trust me. Like, should I not trust myself? What am I doing wrong? It can lead to like all these different things. And that right there, right, is why it's so hard to be a head coach. You're trying to manage what the statistics say and the analytics say, but then you're leading people. You're still leading grown, like adult men, and you have to deal with their psyche, their mental space, their emotions. You have to balance all of those things. And it's a never-ending circle, so it's tough. And I think that's a great point. I love that you mentioned that, because I think some
people doesn't understand. Some people doesn't understand when a player can't play well for a team and he goes to another team, another scenario, and he becomes a star. And people are, what happened? What was wrong? Sometimes it's all about confidence. You have the same guy can be two different players, two completely different players, a confident player and a without confidence player, and
we see
it plays
a
huge part. It plays a huge part of the game.
I mean, like you played at a professional level. Like think about how much better you felt with certain teams or in certain situations based on who your head coach was or your goalkeeper coach was. Like it makes you feel different. It makes you feel like you can achieve more or accomplish more. Like that mental side of it is so important and so huge. Like, that's a great point.
Man, no way. No way it doesn't have an impact, because I remember most of athletes won't assume that, all right? Because sometimes it can show weakness or things like that. But I remember when at young age, if I felt as a goalkeeper, I felt like the coach trusted me, the team trusted me a lot. I could feel it, all right? I would trust myself a lot more than if I felt, there are doubts about my playing now, I'm coming the place of a guy who's established and there are questions about my playing. It would affect me at a young age. When I grew older, more experienced, it didn't impact that so much because I could deal with it better. But back in time, it played a a huge part. I could be a completely different player if I felt like people trust me or if I didn't feel it, So it changes from person to person. There are people who doesn't care about anything. They just go and play and, it doesn't impact. But there are people like me who could feel this way. So I think it's really important as a head coach to identify this. Maybe, okay, McDermott's know Josh Allen better than me, better than you.
Yeah.
He knows that, no, I can call him and it won't matter for him. It doesn't change anything. He will come back again. He knows I trust him, and But maybe it could unlock a new whole level of play. Who knows? So it depends on person to person. All right, sure. Man, I don't want to keep you here for too much longer. So let's talk Jets briefly, right? Because it's 1 hour and 5 and we didn't talk Jets. My goodness.
I know.
So let's go. What's your expectations for today? Because the Jets, especially Zach Wilson, being better, right? 5 games, I think, without interceptions, and they were pretty competitive against the Buccaneers. If you look at the depth chart, they have talent. They have that talent both sides of the ball, right? And they can want to mess up this Bills party at the half today. How do you see this game?
I want to be like fully confident, but as a Bills fan who's been through so much, I'm always paranoid. Like I'm always worried of like the rug being pulled out from under me and bad things happening. And you mentioned it with this Jets team. The Jets, they're not a good football team, but they've been better lately. Zach Wilson has looked decent since he came back from his injury. Braxton Berrios is a really great weapon for them. He is out today. He got placed on IR, so that hurts the Jets, but they've got 2 good running backs in Michael Carter and Ty Johnson. Zach Wilson gets them the ball in checkdowns. They're good in space. They're good coming out of the backfield with pass routes, receiving the ball, or just regular runs. They have Elijah Vera Tucker at left guard, who I really like. I wanted him to fall to the Bills and the Bills to take him. He's good. They've got some pieces on defense. They've got a good head coach in Robert Saleh. All that being said, the Bills should win this game today. I'm a little worried. Again, I mentioned earlier, the weather is not great out here now. It's bad. So that worries me a little, but the Bills should win this game today. I'm confident in the Bills today, but if you told me the Bills only win this game by 10 points, I wouldn't be shocked. The Jets are playing a little more confident. They've played a little better. Again, Zach Wilson's looking good. He's making some throws. He's been using his legs. He's escaping pressure. He's finding his check down receivers and able to work the middle of the field a little bit. But the Bills have more talent. They are a better executing team and a better design team. The Bills should win this game today. I'm expecting them, knock on wood, I'm very superstitious. I'm expecting them to win today, but I could see it being tough at times because the Jets play hard no matter what. Nobody believes in them. They play hard every week. They should have beaten Tampa last week. And anytime you almost beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a very good football team, you cannot overlook a team that almost did that.
Yeah, and like Keenan Williams is a guy who, if he plays at his best, he can cause trouble to our interior offensive line. CJ Mosley, I think maybe he isn't at his prime anymore, but 2 years ago, I remember the opener when until he got out of the game injured, he was a complete difference maker in that game.
He had that touchdown, that interception return for a touchdown.
Yeah, he was killing our offense. And he got injured and left the game, and it opened up our offensive performance, and we could win that game. But they have some interesting names that can cause trouble, both sides. Jameson Crowder is a kind of Cole Beasley kind of receiver, quarterback friendly, can get open, can cause trouble. So I'm a little bit worried because ideally in this game and Week 18 playoffs soon, you don't want Josh Allen running the ball too much today against this Jets team that has nothing to lose, And we've seen that our running game has worked because Josh Allen is a big piece of it. Can we run the ball without Josh Allen being a major part of it? I think this is a big question for today's game, man.
Yeah, the injuries always are such a worrisome thing. I mean, look at even last year, right? At the end of the second last regular season game, the game in New England on Monday night, Cole Beasley hurts his knee. He's not the same for the playoffs. That's an awesome comment from João Paulo. The Jets have nothing to lose. So that's the type of team, right, that comes in and maybe they decide, you know what? We're going for it on every single fourth down. We're not attempting field goals. We're not going to punt. We're going to blitz. We're going to air it out. We're going to do a whole bunch of different things. That can be a different thing too, right? Like what if they break tendency and they don't do what they normally do? They just decide to come out and do something different because it's the last game. Let's try some new things for next year. We got nothing to lose. That's a very real thing in today's NFL. So that's a tremendous, tremendous comment from João Paulo. And yeah, it goes with all those little things. Like I don't want to see Allen run. Like in today's game, like I understand when he has to, but I'm nervous, like for everybody, every starter that plays today. I don't want anybody to get dinged up or nicked up because the playoffs are next week. That's a very real thing too, especially when, again, the weather's not great. You need to run the ball a little more. Josh Allen's been the best piece of the run game. You might not want to see that today. That's a good point.
Yeah, and another topic that I would keep an eye on is about Robert Saleh, man, because I remember Pittsburgh game, and when we lost to Pittsburgh, okay, we were frustrated, obviously, but I was talking to people here, to Brazilian Bills Mafia, about, okay, last two times we faced the Steelers, we won, we beat them pretty soundly, right? And Mike Tomlin is a great coach. And now he became the first one to reach more than 15 seasons without a losing record. So you can't really say Mike Tomlin isn't a great head coach. He's a great head coach. It's too longer of time to avoid the losing season. Yeah. And in this chess match in the NFL, when you beat a good head coach twice, you kind of expect him coming back with different things and figuring out some things to be able to beat you, just like the Bills beat the Chiefs too, right? And the last few times we've faced Salah's defense, we've beat him pretty soundly, right? Against the 49ers, Allen had a great game, and we scored a lot of points. And again this year against the Jets. So Robert Saleh is supposed to be a great offensive mind, and he has the potential to be a great head coach, maybe because of this defensive background. So I kind of expect him in this third time, especially with nothing to lose, like João Paulo said, trying different stuff and maybe trying to figure out some stuff that he can use when it matters next time he faces the Bills, because he will face this team twice a year, right? It kind of worries me a little bit what Saleh has in mind for today and what can he try against this Bills offense, especially in a bad weather and maybe without Josh Allen as a runner all the time, right? What do you think?
I like that point a lot. You know, he's faced the Bills already once this year, you know, with the Jets. He faced them last year with San Francisco. So now this is his third game against Josh Allen in about a year's time. So he's got familiarity playing against the Bills and scheming against them, coaching against them. And yeah, that's what makes division games so tough every year. Even when the Patriots were running the AFC East and Miami was terrible and the Jets were terrible, they would have really tough games against the Jets and Dolphins, even the Bills. Like I know Brady is like 35-3 against the Bills, but there were a lot of, even when the Bills were bad, there was a lot of games. There were the
3 games, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's okay because Brady's Brazilian. It's even when the Bills were bad, there were tough games where the Patriots just barely beat the Bills. Those division games are tough because of what you said, the familiarity. You've got coaches who know what you're trying to do. They play you twice a year. They have plenty of tape and experience against you. They know what works. They know what doesn't. And now you've got a head coach in Robert Saleh who's faced the Bills. Again, this will be his third time in under a year. I think that's a good point. And I like that idea of going to João Paulo's, statement of nothing to lose. I love what you just said. Like, yeah, maybe let's try out some different things on defense and see what they do. So then in the offseason, we can study those things and be like, you know what, this worked, this didn't. Let's import it into the game plan in a new season when things are on the table and things matter. And let's try it right now, because who cares if we win or not, because our season's done. Let's try some things. I think that's a very interesting point and something to keep an eye on, because again, we might see, if we see the Jets maybe beat the Bills next year, you could see some of the things that they instituted today being the reason for it, because they plant those seeds today with nothing to lose and then use them next year.
Yeah, especially since the last in the last game, it's for me it seemed like Saleh was doing his defense, single height, man coverage.
Yep.
He just like, I don't care if they are playing two heights, zone coverage, and slowing down Allen. I will play my defense, and the guys will play our schemes, and we will make it work. And it didn't work, and he kept doing it, And like Josh threw 2 fades to Diggs consecutively and scored on one, and
see,
he kept.
This is a good point for Brian Daboll for you, right? Because the Bills were seeing so many too high coverages in zone, like you said. But what Brian Daboll did was kind of force Robert Saleh to adjust. He went with heavier personnel and he put Josh Allen under center, which made Robert Saleh have to bring a safety down and honor that. And then Josh picked apart the single high defense, which he's very good at. So Brian Daboll, your guy, he made an adjustment coming into that game and said, teams are playing us like this. I'm going to do this to make them adjust and play us differently. And then they took advantage.
Poison.
So great point.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe, just maybe, Saleh will try some different things today. We need to be a little bit worried about that. So how confident are you in the AFC East title, and how important is it for you? Because there are some people who are just like, oh, I don't care about AFC East title. It doesn't matter if we beat not New England today, beat the Jets, win the title, but lose to New England in the playoffs, and this kind of stuff. For me, it's really important. I want this AFC East title back to back, and as long as we can, because the Patriots won it so many times that now it's time to us to show who are the reigning champions here in this division, right? But let the playoffs game for another time. Now let's win the division. I think it's important. How important is it for you and for this Mafia up there?
I think it's important just because of how long it's been since they were division champions. Then they win it last year. It would be, as comment there from Handsome Man, the weather it's bad out here today. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's not great. I mean, granted, the game's in for another about like 6 hours, so it's supposed to get a little better, but right now it's bad. Thank goodness the game isn't at 1. But I think it's important. Yeah, that's funny. You got another good comment. I think it's important to win the division for the sake of, like you said, like establishing, okay, this is our time now. This is our division. I don't want to give the Patriots any type of ammunition for going forward. Like, I don't want them to win the division this year, even if it's from a mental standpoint, right? Like, from a practicality standpoint, I want to win the division because I want a home playoff game. That's what I want. But then also, I don't want to give New England any momentum going into these playoffs. I don't want to give them any momentum going into next year, thinking like, oh, yeah, we had one down year in 2020 during COVID, and then look what happened. We came right back the next year and we won the division. No, I don't want to give them any opportunity of belief, of momentum. I want to stamp that out, put my foot on the throat, nail in the coffin. I do not want that. And I think the division title is important to Bills fans up here. Like, they know how long New England ran this division. They know that we broke the streak last year and won the AFC East, and the expectation, to tie it all into what we mentioned earlier, the expectation going into this year was the Bills need to win the AFC East, and they should win the AFC East. And if they win today, granted, maybe the record wasn't as good as everybody thought and the performances weren't as great, but it's still a division title, still moves you towards that next pedestal. And I also think it's a nice little point, again, from a mentality standpoint. It's nice to have everything like collectively. Ideally, I want to win the Super Bowl, just like in soccer. I would prefer to win Champions League than I would to win La Liga. But what I love the most is winning La Liga and winning Champions League and also winning Copa del Rey. Like, give me the treble, like, give me all three. It's nice to know, like, we're the best team in our division and we're also the best team in the world. But it all starts with that first piece. It starts with winning your division, being the best team in your division and going from there. And I want a home playoff game. I don't want to give any edge from an on-field perspective, but it's that mentality piece. Like, and it's a big thing for the Bills too. If you go into next year knowing like we're back-to-back AFC East champions, let's continue to build and keep going up. I think it's important that the Bills win the division. It's more important that the Bills come out of this game healthy today, but I think it's right up there. You know, the division piece, they need to win the AFC East for a variety of reasons, both on the field and then mental off.
Awesome, man. The last comment about the game here, Nelson is always with us here. He's saying today's the day to rest our players, to avoid injuries, and he prays for Jesus to protect our guys, right? But my question is, will McDermott be able to do that, to secure the division? I'm not so sure, man. It's not looking like this kind of game, especially because of the weather, in my opinion.
Yeah, and last year's a good measure, right? Like the Bills didn't really have a lot to play for in the last game of the year against Miami, and then we saw the starters come out and play a decent amount of that game. I think today there's much more on the line than there was last year. Like the division title is on the line. I think the best that Nelson can hope for, I think the Bills play their starters. I think what Nelson should hope for is the Bills get up early and they have a big lead, and then they can start to pull some of the starters and rest some of the guys, because I do think you're going to see the starters today. I think you're going to see Diggs. I think you're going to see Hyde and Poyer and Josh Allen. But
Diggs wants his money.
Oh, that is true. Right? Yeah, he needs some of that bonus money. He's got to get his catches in there. But I think, to Nelson's point, I think if the Bills are up, they'll start to pull starters in the second half. And that's what I'm hoping for. Like, let's go into halftime with around a 20-point lead, or at least in the double digits. Let's extend that lead in the third quarter, and then let's start to pull the starters. Because, again, I want to win the AFC East, but health is so important. We saw how different the Bills looked in the playoffs last year. Stephon Diggs got banged up at the end of the year, and so did Cole Beasley. And the offense looked very different against the Colts, Ravens, and Chiefs last year because of those injuries. So you got to be healthy.
Absolutely, man. Anthony, thank you so much. Felipe just said here, Felipe Ruggeri is always here too, and he just says that he thinks everybody can win in the AFC, just like we commented before. It's wide open. A lot of teams really can get hot in the right time and win it all, right? And that's the way AFC is right now. Man, to close it, I just want to talk a little bit about soccer, okay? Because you are a pretty huge Barca fan, as we could see by some of your comments, right? But here you need a team here in Brazil, Anthony, because we are the soccer country of the world, the capital of soccer, and we proud ourselves about it, at least. Unfortunately, it's not being the same way recently, but we hope it changes for the better soon. So we need a team here in Brazil, all right? And the best team you could root for here in Brazil, all right, I already showed Greg about this, okay, is this team, all right? This is the team to root for, okay, in Brazil. This is Botafogo, okay? Botafogo is the team to go in Brazil. So when I go to Buffalo, when finally I can watch a game in Buffalo, I will bring some of these for you, Greg, and now new Botafogo fan base in Buffalo, all right? Because now we have an American owner, all right?
Okay.
John Textor is the name of the guy. He's a businessman who bought Botafogo recently, like 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah. he's a Crystal Palace owner too in England.
Okay, from the Premier League, yeah.
Yeah, and he just had a deal with Botafogo to buy the team. So we're gonna be a powerhouse soon, all right? And we are a very historical team, so that's the team to go, all right? Botafogo, when somebody asks you, that's the team to go here in Brazil, all right, Anthony? Just wanted to showcase
I saw that in the comments earlier. Somebody said
yeah.
Fernando introduced Anthony to Botafogo. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Botafogo is pretty much like the Bills, all right? Because we had a great history. We had maybe after Pelé, or alongside Pelé, the biggest talent in Brazil. Garrincha is the name of the guy.
Okay.
Is the name of the guy. Every time Pelé and Garrincha played together, Brazil never lost a game with them playing together, and they played like a lot of times together, World Cups and all. So Botafogo has a huge history, but was in trouble recently. We just won the second division and got back to the first division after 1 year. All right, we are the second division champions right now, and we were just bought by this American businessman. So Botafogo will be a powerhouse soon, and that's your team here in Brazil now. Okay, I can give you this gift from me to you to introduce you to Botafogo, right?
That's my team. That's my Brazilian team. I don't have one now. Like then that's Marcelo's in the comments saying support Flamengo.
Ignore Marcelo, because Flamengo is pretty much like the Patriots. If you want to be a Patriots fan, you can root for Flamengo, because it's the media team, Everybody is like on the media, like, oh, Flamengo is back. Oh, like
that's how I know about Flamengo, because I know a ton of people who be like, oh yeah, so Flamengo.
Yeah. They have a lot of fans, like Patriots fans, But
so I'll go with Botafogo. That's my team. Then I'm with you.
Yeah, we are together, man. All right. And thank you so much, man. I asked for 30 minutes and you gave me 1 hour and 30. Oh my goodness, you'll never come back this way. I'm so sorry.
Come back anytime. No, dude, you were one of the people who supported me early on. I always enjoy talking to you. You know your stuff about football, and you're a Bills guy. And then on the opposite, I love soccer. You're a former professional. Like anytime you need me for anything, we were talking off air before, we were supposed to get together earlier in the year and I was sick that weekend. Anytime you need me, man, I'm yours. I'm your guy. I appreciate you. I'm so glad that I was able to come on and that you had me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And Marcelo just put the translation, because yes, Botafogo is like saying in English, put fire.
That's an awesome name.
Yes. It's lit. It's fire, man.
But then Marcel also came back and said, Anthony, he gives you a terrible choice.
No, because it's like the Bills. If you say something to root for the Bills during the drought, man, you are giving people some trouble. But
that's why I want to get in now, because they just got promoted from the second league, and now they're in the first. But then as Botafogo starts to get better, I'm getting in early, so I can say no.
Yeah, a new owner now, money coming in, because Botafogo had a lot of trouble with debt. And
I don't want to be a fan that gets on the bandwagon after they win. I want to get in now and then go on the rise with them. So I'm sorry, Marcelo, but I'm
and look at this symbol, man. Look at this logo. It's
gorgeous,
beautiful. It's
beautiful.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Anthony. I will need to continue a little bit in Portuguese for people in here, because otherwise they will kill me. But it was awesome to have you, and the doors are wide open, so you can come back every time you want, okay? Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me. And anytime you need me, DM me. I got you. I appreciate you having me on. This was awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Go Bills. Talk to you later.
Go Bills and go Botafogo.
Yeah, absolutely. Vai Botafogo. Beleza, gente? Tá aí o Anthony, cara, gente finíssima do Cover One aí. A gente foi parceiro de Cover One por bastante tempo e a amizade sempre continua, não tenha dúvidas. E muito legal o bate-papo com ele, quase 1 hora e meia, né? Queria fazer meia horinha, mas o papo fluiu. e o Anthony realmente passando muito conhecimento, a galera que entende inglês aí conseguiu aproveitar bem, né? E para resumir, 1h30 também agora em português vai ser meio bravo, mas eu vou tentar ao máximo aí deixar algumas informações. Eu quero primeiro falar logo aqui eu vi o comentário, tá? Eu não ignorei não, aqui deixa eu voltar um pouco aqui, que agora rolou bastante resenha do soccer aqui, vamos lá. O Gustavo aqui, ó. Gustavo, desculpa, eu só não perguntei isso aqui de novo, porque uma boa parte aqui da nossa conversa a gente falou sobre isso, tá? Resumidamente, tá? Ele falou o seguinte, ele é a favor ele pensa que se for construir um dome agora, tá? A gente vai acabar perdendo, assim, o dome não vai influenciar agora, vai demorar no mínimo uns 3 anos para ficar pronto. E de 3 a 5 anos, segundo ele. Então, assim, o time que precisa, se fosse para ter um dome hoje para esse time dos Bills, ótimo, ele gostaria de ter o dome, tá? Porque a gente precisa, seria bom para o Josh Allen poder lançar a bola no seu melhor e tudo mais. Porém, daqui a 3 anos você espera que o time não esteja com essa deficiência na linha ofensiva, com essa deficiência para correr com a bola, ainda que não mude completamente para uma equipe que vai correr com a bola em primeiro lugar, né? Sempre que você tiver o Josh Allen no auge, você vai ser pass first, você vai entender que você vai conseguir correr quando precisar. Então, nesse caso, o dome não vai ser tão necessário. E aí eu complementei falando que realmente te faz pensar o seguinte: às vezes pode ser feio a gente ver o Josh Allen tendo problemas na neve, no vento, né? Ter números que nem teve contra o Atlanta, tá? Ou até contra o New England. Mas olha para o quarterback do adversário. Será que não está sendo pior? O Mac Jones nem lançou, né? O Matt Ryan, que é tão preciso, é o ponto forte, sempre foi do Matt Ryan, como eu falei na última live, não fez nenhum estrago. Então, assim, prejudica o nível do futebol sendo jogado, prejudica as estatísticas do Josh Allen, mas no ganhar e perder, quem que é mais prejudicado? Talvez seja o adversário do próprio Bills. Então, nesse sentido, realmente o ponto do Anthony é bem legal, tá, Gustavo? E foi o que a gente falou ali sobre isso. Antes de continuar aqui em português, gente, só colocar rapidamente aqui o meu Pix aqui na tela, tá? Porque eu quero agradecer demais a galera que já colaborou através do Pix aí com o meu trabalho. Sempre que possível eu estou trazendo essa galera lá do Cover One, Buffalo Rumblings, essa galera que cobre os Bills mais de perto lá, né, lá de Buffalo, que o pessoal sempre acrescenta bastante coisa também. Não só eles, mas também os convidados aqui, o Rogério já veio, o João Paulo já teve aí algumas vezes, Diogão, meu parceiro de podcast, da época do podcast, né, o Leandro, né, já veio um monte de gente aí também aqui da Bills Mafia BR, quero trazer mais gente também, então sempre que possível eu estou trazendo, tá? E também, né, às vezes por questão de tempo, fica muito mais prático vir aqui, ligar a câmera, começar a falar e analisar, né, porque nem sempre eu consigo manter um horário fixo, mas essa galera que já contribuiu através do Pix me ajuda demais a poder continuar dedicando esse tempo, né? Hoje já aqui 1h30, vai bater 2 horas hoje fácil aqui de live, né? E dedicar esse tempo para falar de Bills aqui em português, em inglês, mas em especial para Bills Mafia BR, né? Então, muito obrigado a esse pessoal que já ajudou, e quem quiser ajudar, qualquer valor aí é bem-vindo, tá, gente? Não tem valor mínimo, não tem valor máximo, não é nada obrigatório, o conteúdo tá aí para ser consumido para todo mundo que quiser, né? Mesma coisa lá no Substack, tá meio paradão, tá? Mas quando eu escrevo é por lá, tá? Então se inscreve lá no Substack gratuitamente também, se inscreve aqui no canal, recebe todo esse conteúdo em primeira mão, tá? E o Pix está aí na tela para quem quiser, né? Sou muito grato a todos que já contribuíram. Se você não quer, se você não pode, não tem problemas, o conteúdo está aí, deixa seu like, né? Deixa seu comentário, participa, divulga nas redes sociais aí, Face, WhatsApp, Twitter. Eu estou sempre no Twitter, no @fernandoschmude, lá retweetando tudo que é relacionado a Bills, né? Então segue lá também, você já está me ajudando bastante. Agora, quem puder e quem quiser dar uma contribuição, já teve muita gente que fez, e eu sou muito, muito agradecido a todos vocês. Beleza, galera? Deixa eu dar uma passada aqui se teve mais comentário no final. A galera tá falando aí do Botafogo e do Flamengo, né? Brincadeira aí, né, gente? Isso aí é a nossa rivalidade sadia aqui, e tudo muito na brincadeira. Afinal de contas, a gente é tudo Bills aqui, é isso que a gente está aqui para falar disso, né? E assim, gente, muito legal falar com o Anthony. Falei muito mais sobre Bills em geral do que Bills e Jets mais no final, rapidamente. E o que a gente falou do Bills e Jets realmente é uma certa preocupação, né, com essa partida de hoje, porque o clima realmente está horrível por lá, né? O Anthony falou, o Handsome Man aqui também falou, não é minha opinião, tá, gente? É ele que se denomina assim, né? Tá, então ele falou aqui também da questão que o clima lá está bem, bem ruim, né? Então o que acontece? Infelizmente, esse tipo de clima acaba dando a tendência do jogo ficar apertado. E se o jogo estiver apertado, não dá para, como o Nelson pediu, né? O Nelson falou de o Nelson falou de poupar alguns jogadores, descansar jogadores para os playoffs. Eles querem garantir o mando de campo, querem garantir vantagem nos playoffs, querem garantir o título da AFC. Não vai dar para descansar a galera, não, infelizmente. Né? Eu acho que, de repente, até coloquei isso para o Anthony, é um jogo que a gente não quer ver o Josh Allen sendo tão utilizado no jogo terrestre, ficar tomando pancada à toa aí num jogo, último jogo antes dos playoffs começar, onde aí sim você vai ter que ir por tudo ou nada e vai ter que expor o Josh Allen também a tomar essas pancadas no jogo terrestre. Então é um jogo que é importante o nosso jogo terrestre começar a funcionar mesmo sem o Allen ser uma ameaça de correr com a bola, o que não é tão fácil de acontecer. A gente não viu isso acontecer esse ano. Nosso jogo terrestre só tem funcionado com o Allen sendo grande parte dele correndo com a bola, não só ameaçando passar. Então vamos ver como é que pode isso acontecer, quem que vai estar ativo ali dos running backs, se o Singletary vai ter aquele caminhão de snaps de novo também, pensando em playoffs, né? E eu acho que tudo isso pode colaborar para o jogo ser mais apertado do que a gente gostaria. O Jets tem talento, tá? Tem jogadores de talento. O Zach Wilson está há 5 jogos sem lançar interceptação. Tá? Ele tem 2 running backs que ele pode lançar o check down ali e vão ganhar jardas após a recepção para ele, no Tevin Coleman, no Michael Carter. Tá? Então, é um jogo que pode ficar perigoso. Mencionei para o Anthony do Saleh, né? O Robert Saleh a gente já enfrentou 2 vezes, tá? Ele como coordenador defensivo do 49ers e ele no ano passado e ele como treinador do Jets esse ano. E ele as 2 vezes foi atropelado pelo Josh Allen e companhia, pelo ataque dos Bills, pelo Dable, tá? A terceira vez talvez seja mais complicado. E sem ter nada a perder, ele pode arriscar tudo que vier na cabeça do cara, ele pode arriscar, vou tentar isso aqui, vou tentar isso ali. Porque ele pode, como o Anthony falou, juntar esse tape para a off-season estudar e para preparar já o game plan para o ano que vem. Então, assim, o Saleh está nessa situação, para esse confronto, uma situação confortável de poder pensar, vou tentar coisas diferentes aqui, ver o que dá certo, né? Porque para o ano que vem eu estou preparando, não para ganhar hoje, para ganhar lá na frente. Então, ele está nessa situação confortável nesse sentido. E os Bills têm um monte de coisa a cuidar. Quer ganhar, mas ao mesmo tempo não quer machucar ninguém, né? Não quer expor o Josh Allen a tomar mais pancada do que precisa. Tá? Então, tem tudo isso que preocupa um pouco nesse jogo contra o Jets. A minha prediction aqui, o meu palpite, tá 28-17, tá? Eu tinha colocado esse palpite até mesmo antes de saber sobre o clima, tá? Talvez um pouco abaixo disso aqui, talvez um 21-17, um 24-17, tá? Com esse clima ruim, tá? E essas condições que eu tô falando. Mas eu acho que os Bills têm condição de vencer. Se perder esse jogo de hoje, para mim não seria maracanaço, como mencionaram aqui nos comentários, né? Foi mencionado aqui que se perder maracanaço. Não vejo dessa forma pelas condições dos Bills já estarem. Querem sim o título, querem vantagem nos playoffs, jogar em casa, até que ponto é vantagem, mas não tenha dúvidas que para o treinador, para os jogadores, pensam que não, jogar em casa é vantagem, né? E vão querer buscar, sim, mas essas condições de neve, esse momento aí, talvez não querer expor muitos jogadores, pode pesar, manter o jogo equilibrado e pode botar o Jets no jogo. Confio que os Bills vençam, mas não seria a maior surpresa do mundo caso não vencessem hoje, tá? Na minha opinião, tá? Ainda sobre o clima aqui, falar das 3 interceptações, né? Deixa eu ver aqui, achar o comentário. O João Paulo falando aqui, ó, que o Josh Allen sofreu contra o Falcons, camuflou o branco do Falcons na neve, né? Apesar que o Falcons joga de capacete preto, né, João Paulo? O capacete ali ajudaria. Mas é uma teoria. Como eu te falei, né, cara? Eu acho que se fosse algo que incomodasse demais o Josh Allen, ele ia comentar e os Bills têm a escolha de jogar de branco se quiserem em casa, tá? Então, eu acho improvável, tá? Mas quem sabe, né? Pode ter atrapalhado, sim. Gustavo, cara, se eu sofro, Gustavo, né? Eu, João Paulo, Leonardo aí, a gente sofre, cara. Por que não, cara? Tá, mas o pior já passou, acredito eu. Tá? Não dá para piorar do que aquilo ali. O Marcelão aqui, ó. Fernando, no Open Field, o Josh Allen foi interceptado 3 vezes no jogo passado. Sim, aconteceu. A gente até falou das interceptações. Cada interceptação tem uma história, sim. Tá? Mas ao mesmo tempo a gente ganhou o jogo, mas ao mesmo tempo na neve ele correu com a bola ali, fez a diferença. O Matt Ryan não tinha como correr com a bola daquela maneira. Então, assim, fica feio, tá? Só que assim, ó, como eu te falei, o Josh Allen lançou bem contra o Patriots naquele vendaval? Não, ele não teve grandes números passando. Mas se você comparar com o do Mac Jones, que lançou a bola 3 vezes, né? A vantagem os Bills conseguiam passar, o New England não. Faltou parar os caras correr, mas os caras não conseguiam passar, né? Então, contra o Falcons, a questão do Matt Ryan cuidar melhor da bola fez a diferença a seu favor, mas o Allen teve toda a questão de conseguir correr com a bola, e assim, uma decisão ruim naquela interceptação que ele correu para a lateral e forçou, colocou o Falcons no jogo que eles não tinham nem muita chance de estar no jogo. Então, assim, fica feio, fica ruim. O Allen não joga no seu melhor. Mas, entre Josh Allen contra outros quarterbacks na neve, eu acho que o Josh Allen, se cuidar melhor da bola, se ter mais uma tomada de decisão um pouco mais calma, cautelosa, ele te oferece mais possibilidade do que o quarterback adversário. Eu prefiro, já falei aqui, sim, ver ele jogando no dome fechado, no seu melhor. As duas equipes jogam no seu melhor, tá? E se os Bills vencem jogando realmente no seu melhor, a gente fica satisfeito. Se perdem porque o adversário foi melhor, não foi a neve que igualou, não foi nada disso. Eu prefiro assim, Marcelo, por isso que eu até falei pro Anthony, eu sou Team Dome, e até brinquei, no mundo ideal você faz um teto ali retrátil, e aí você, antes do jogo, fala com o treinador, e qual que é o game plan hoje? O game plan hoje, esse time não consegue lançar a bola, tá? Os caras só lançam, os caras não conseguem correr. Abre o teto, deixa a neve cair, vamos jogar. Esse time não consegue, só corre, né? Não, fecha e vamos lançar, sabe? Tipo, age de acordo com o que te for mais favorável, né? E o Anthony até sorriu e brincou, falou, esse é o ideal. Mas isso não é muito a realidade, tá? Se você tem um teto retrátil, né? Num jogo com muita neve, é óbvio, o bom senso vai mandar que tu feche o teto e não jogue com os elementos atrapalhando. Eu acho que até parte da liga esse sentido, tá? E até pensando também no conforto dos jogadores, né? Então, ninguém vai fazer um campo com teto retrátil para abrir na neve, por mais que isso te favoreça na questão de jogo. Tá? Então, assim, isso não é uma brincadeira, não é algo que dá para a gente levar a sério. Mas no sentido de o que o Anthony falou, Marcelão, tá? É no sentido do seguinte: imagina os Bills com teto, com um dom, jogando em casa, mas se você vai jogar um jogo fora, em Kansas City, em Foxborough, sabe, em Tennessee, você vai jogar nos elementos, cara. Então, às vezes, a tua equipe vai estar ainda com mais dificuldade para jogar um jogo decisivo nos elementos, porque você tem que jogar fora de casa também, você não joga só em casa, sabe? Então tem tudo isso para se analisar. E é bem válido, né, essa opinião também. Beleza? Vamos lá, o Wilson vai ser interceptado hoje, assim, espero, né? Milano neles, é isso aí, Marcelão. Bom, ainda sobre o que troquei ideia com o Anthony, do coaching staff, ele super satisfeito com o coaching staff, né? O outro Marcelo perguntou, né? Que ele é time fora Dable e tal. O Anthony está na mesma página que eu, satisfeito com o Dable, né? A galera tem expectativas e quando foi o que o Anthony falou, quando elas não vêm 100%, a galera já fica meio assim, né? Mas eu acho que não dá para criticar muito o trabalho dele, não. Os resultados têm sido excepcional, o ataque é muito bom. E o que o Anthony chamou atenção para a falta de execução. Se o Dable às vezes chama o que ele chama de jogadas, é porque o material que ele tem ali não consegue te entregar outro tipo de jogadas, né? Então, se ele sabe que a linha ofensiva não consegue bloquear bem o suficiente para correr com a bola, consistentemente, sem usar o Josh Allen correndo, não adianta ele querer ficar chamando corrida para bater de frente com a parede e assim por diante. Então, a continuação na evolução do elenco vai fazer muita parte nisso também. Não tenha dúvidas. Até o Rodrigo perguntou, né? E a escolha para o próximo draft, eu acabei não... queria perguntar, o Rodrigo Foiani, me perdoa, não perguntei para o Anthony ali, né? Mas, assim, o foco para o draft, não tenha dúvidas, cara, que se for, né, assim, a gente está em condições de melhor jogador disponível, escolher, e você pode, na free agency, de repente, também fechar algum buraco e te deixar nessa condição para o draft. Mas, se for pensar hoje, interior de linha ofensiva, o Anthony até fez um comentário falando ali, ó, quando falou do Dome, né, ele falou, ó, você idealmente vai ter ali, vai adicionar uns 2 guards ali na off-season, tal, e vai começar a conseguir correr com a bola, e você vai ter um balanço maior, um balanço melhor. Então, não tenha dúvidas que interior da linha ofensiva talvez é o caminho nesse momento onde a gente precisa de upgrade, é o primeiro ponto de preocupação, né? Quando eu falei do que preocupava para os Bills nos playoffs e numa caminhada para o Super Bowl, eu mencionei 3 pontos, né? A linha ofensiva em primeiro lugar, o parar o jogo terrestre adversário em segundo, e o special teams eu coloquei em terceiro, né? O Anthony concordou com os 3, acha a linha ofensiva o principal problema, acha que é algo que o Bean vai precisar trabalhar, melhorar para o ano que vem, adicionar jogadores via draft, via free agency, a gente vai ter que ver, né? Parar o jogo terrestre. O Anthony reforçou aquela coisa que eu sempre falo, da metodologia, da filosofia da defesa do Sean McDermott, de jogar em níquel, de convidar o adversário a tentar correr com a bola, de tentar forçar terceiras descidas para sair de campo, de parar o passe em primeiro lugar e tentar, né, apenas limitar o jogo terrestre, tá? Então, e ele acrescentou do tipo de jogador que o McDermott gosta na sua linha defensiva, né? E aí ele usou o Greg Rousseau, né? Ele falou, olha, eu gostava muito do OE ali do Ravens, né? O pass rusher, que eu também gostava no draft, um cara atleticamente muito rápido e tal. Eu gostava muito dele, né? E ele mencionou mais um que eu não lembro agora, não lembro se foi o Barmore, não lembro, tá? E aí eu gostava muito desses jogadores. Mas o Greg Rousseau é o cara que se encaixava exatamente no que o McDermott quer para os seus jogadores de linha defensiva, para os seus defensive ends. O Rousseau foi a escolha, independente se você acha que fulano é melhor, se fulano é melhor, o Rousseau é o tipo de jogador que o McDermott quer para aquela posição. O Boogie Basham, a mesma coisa, né? Jogadores maiores, defensive ends maiores, né? Não são defensive ends talvez pequenos, explosivos, e isso até sinalize, né? O Jerry Hughes tem se mantido em Buffalo muito tempo, um dos jogadores, poucos jogadores que estão aí que são do regime passado ainda, né? Do outro regime anterior ainda, né? O Hughes foi adicionado ainda, eu acho que nem o Whaley era ainda, eu acho que ainda era o Buddy Nix na troca do Jerry Hughes, tá? Mas realmente tem se segurado porque tem sido muito bom realmente no que tem feito, mas nesse último ano agora de contrato talvez não vá continuar para o ano que vem, né? E talvez também não se encaixe no perfil de defensive ends que ele quer, né? Então, e na mesma coisa para defensive tackles, você tem ali o Ed Oliver, que é pequeno para defensive tackle, o Starlot Lele, que era a tua rocha ali no meio da linha defensiva, também já emagreceu, ficou mais leve, já está parecendo mais um tree technique, a gente comentou até, do que um nose tackle, né? O Harrison Phillips, que é o teu run stopper ali na posição do defensive tackle, o cara para parar o jogo terrestre, ele tem 307 libras por ali de peso, e também não é lá o maior defensive tackle da história, não é aquele nose tackle grandão, não é lá um Snack Harrison, né? Então, assim, a galera fica, né, pensando, e eu também me incluo nessa, pô, seria legal você botar um nose tackle grandão ali no meio para parar esse jogo terrestre e tal, mas não é o que o McDermott quer na posição, pelo menos não tem sido, né? Ele quer defensive tackles, jogadores que penetrem nos gaps, ataquem os gaps, os linebackers ataquem os gaps, né? O Poyer venha lá de cima também atacar um gap. E aí o Anthony chamou atenção. Essa filosofia, o que acontece? Ela faz com que você tenha uma margem de erro muito pequena no jogo terrestre. Por você não lotar o box, por você ter ali os 4 jogadores da linha defensiva, os 2 linebackers, às vezes o Taron Johnson junto no box, cada um está responsável por um gap e às vezes uma fração de segundo, uma falha de comunicação, né, uma pequena tomada de decisão, uma fração de segundo atrasada, você perde o gap e aí uma big run entra, principalmente, né, contra equipes que têm esses corredores elite, né, como o Colts, como o Titans e o próprio Patriots, que tem o Harris, que é rápido, né? Então, assim, a margem de erro fica pequena e quando eles acontecem, permite grandes ganhos. É isso que os Bills têm sofrido, e não é de agora, a gente já viu em outras temporadas, desde que o McDermott assumiu, a gente já viu jogos que essas corridas entraram e nós tivemos problemas. Então passa por essa filosofia, essa maneira que a defesa dos Bills joga. E por que não muda? Não muda porque ela é nada mais nada menos que a melhor contra o passe. E a maioria das vezes você vai perder pelo passe, não vai perder pelo jogo terrestre, né? Então, os Bills estão melhor contra o que é mais ameaçador, né? E aí precisam limitar essa área para que não morram pela área do jogo terrestre, o que aconteceu contra o Colts, o que acontece às vezes, mas muito menos vezes, tá? Então você, em teoria, minimiza as chances de perder, porque você está melhor preparado para lidar contra o que é mais perigoso, um ataque aéreo explosivo. E a gente vê que essa defesa dos Bills tem sido tão boa contra o jogo aéreo, que mesmo com a perda do Tre'Davious White, mesmo às vezes um jogo ou outro que não jogou Jordan Poyer, que não jogou Micah Hyde, a defesa continuou muito bem, jogando muito bem, né? Então, o sistema realmente tem funcionado, os jogadores têm jogado bem. O Anthony defendeu o Tremaine Edmonds, né, falando que a galera também, essa questão de expectativa do Dable, ele usou o Edmonds como um exemplo. Também a expectativa muito grande, quer que seja o Luke Quickly, mas não é bem assim. Ele tem sido muito bom, não tem sido do Quickly, não tem sido All-Pro, mas tem sido bom. Essa semana o próprio Cover One botou uns clipes lá no Twitter do Fred Warner sendo atropelado por wide receiver, lendo o gap errado e permitindo jogo terrestre. Fred Warner nada mais nada menos que talvez hoje o melhor linebacker da NFL, um dos melhores sem dúvida nenhuma, né? Então acontece, esses erros acontecem. Em estatísticas, o próprio Milano tem estatísticas piores, né, avançadas em perdas de tackles, etc., do que o Edmonds, e eu também concordo que o Edmonds tem jogado bem, teve jogos ruins, teve jogadas péssimas, mas tem jogado bem, e ele é grande parte, sim, do que essa defesa dos Bills é tão forte, porque ele é parte disso, sim, não tenha dúvidas. Tá? Falamos ainda de expectativas antes da temporada começar, expectativas agora, se aumentaram, se pioraram. O Anthony mencionou que ele tinha uma expectativa 8, né, no início da temporada, de 0 a 10, 8, né, para se ganhar o Super Bowl nesse Bills, e hoje caiu um pouquinho para 7, por causa desses problemas que a gente mencionou aí, tá? De qualquer forma, ainda a expectativa grande, a AFC em aberto, como o Ruggeri comentou ali, né, muita gente com possibilidade de ganhar, vai depender de quem vai ficar quente realmente nos playoffs na hora certa. O Bengals vem subindo agora, mas será que vai continuar nessa crescente nos playoffs? Né, o Chiefs voltaram, o Titans tem o Henry voltando, os Bills a gente sabe que teve um começo avassalador, caiu, está voltando também, está perigoso, né? A linha parece que se acertou com o Bates. Então, assim, todos têm chance, né? E vai depender, vai estar em aberto, vai ser, na verdade, gente, sinceramente, sem analisar como fã dos Bills nesse momento, se a gente for analisar como fã de futebol americano, se você é um cara que está começando o futebol, você vai apresentar para um amigo o futebol americano e você não é igual eu, né, que fica forçando os caras a torcer pro Botafogo, né? Tá? Você vai só mostrar o futebol americano pro cara falar, vai, assiste aí, curte aí. Cara, esses playoffs da UFC tem tudo para ser muito legal de assistir. Porque, pô, são baitas quarterbacks, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Herbert, provavelmente, né? Vários quarterbacks jovens top aí, surgindo, chegando para jogar bem nesses playoffs. Aí, pô, o Titans não tem um quarterback, mas tem o Derrick Henry, tem o Julio, tem o A.J. Brown. Quer dizer, cara, tem tudo para ser um playoffs muito legal de assistir. Todos os times com um potencial muito legal, mas todos com suas deficiências também. Os Chiefs não são mais aqueles Chiefs que não sangravam. Os Chiefs também sangram, né? O Bengals tem uma linha ofensiva que é pior que a dos Bills, né? O Joe Mixon mascara muito isso, mas a linha ofensiva é muito ruim. Se você consegue fazer o Burrows ter que segurar um pouquinho mais a bola, ele sofre, tá? Então, assim, todos têm suas deficiências, todos têm seus problemas, todos podem estar num dia que realmente as coisas não dê certo. Então, assim, você tem uma AFC completamente em aberto, e a gente tem Josh Allen, e a gente tem uma defesa muito forte, tá? Então a gente tem essa possibilidade sim de chegar e fazer um grande playoff, se voltar ao Super Bowl e até mesmo vencer. Mas que está muito em aberto, tá? E o Anthony reforçou isso aí também, tá? eu acho que, de maneira geral, a gente mencionou isso aí, ele comentou do coaching staff também, que foi pedido, né? Ele falou que gosta muito do McDermott, comentou também com gosto sobre o Dable, Fraser, sobre o Bates, né? E a linha ofensiva, realmente preocupado, mas contente com o que o Bates tem apresentado, assim como a gente tem falado aqui. Eu acho que bastante coisa alinhou bastante com o que a gente vinha falando nos nossos Leading the Charge aqui, tá, gente? Eu acho que, de maneira geral, isso, o background dele, ele mencionando ali, né, começou até falando em português, né, e a esposa dele, dominicana, ele é lá de Buffalo mesmo, então, torcedor dos Bills desde sempre, e fã de Barcelona, né, fã do Barça aí, né, no futebol, gosta de futebol, gosta do Barcelona, fã do Messi, né, então fez umas comparações até dessa questão do por que ele preocupa com essa coisa do jogo terrestre entrar contra a defesa dos Bills. Questão filosófica, ele fez o comparativo com o Barcelona e Atlético de Madrid, né? Quando o Atlético de Madrid começou aí essa fase de estar tendo sucesso com o Simeone, do Barça mantendo a posse de bola, se expondo, o Atlético de Madrid fechadinho lá atrás, contra-ataque, começou a ganhar jogos do Barcelona assim, então ele fez essa comparação, esse paralelo com os jogos terrestres que entram contra a defesa dos Bills, né? Essa questão de embate de filosofias. O Bills não vai mudar, não vai deixar de manter a posse de bola, vamos dizer assim, né? E aí vai estar um pouco exposto a esse time que corre, né? Que vai insistir no jogo terrestre. Então, foi legal essa comparação também aí que o Anthony proporcionou para nós. E de maneira geral, foi isso aí, gente, tá? Estamos batendo quase 2 horas aqui de live. Tenho que almoçar, tenho que preparar para assistir o jogo, fazer uma propaganda ali curtiu ali as opiniões do Anthony, você não conhecia ainda, não tinha visto ainda o Anthony comentando sobre os Bills, pré-jogo, pós-jogo de Cover One, ele, às vezes não tá ele, mas tá o Greg Thompson, que já teve aqui, o Aaron Quinn, que também estou querendo trazer em breve, um parceiraço, torcedor dos Bulls também, não só dos Bills, mas também do Chicago Bulls, assim como eu, quero trazer em breve, tá? A galera sempre tá fazendo pré-jogo, pós-jogo, bem legal também lá do Cover One, vale a pena. E o Film Study do Anthony faz com o Eric, muito legal, sempre fizeram um do Tremaine Edmonds recente, vale a pena. Você que está passando raiva com o Tremaine Edmonds, você que está, não aguento mais, o Edmonds está horrível, vai lá ver o Film Study que o Eric e o Anthony fizeram, tá, com as jogadas, com os lances, analisando a atuação do Tremaine Edmonds contra o Falcons, outras partidas também, muito bom, tá? E aí, às vezes, abre sua mente, você vê um pouquinho diferente a situação, você vê que nem sempre é aquilo que a gente vê uma vez só ali no domingo, no jogo ali, ao vivo, né? Tem muito mais por trás de muita coisa, dá para entender muita coisa legal ali. Beleza, galera? Foi um prazer esse pré-jogo aí, não foi um pré-jogo tradicional, afinal de contas, não é um jogo tradicional. Ainda para fechar, né? Perguntei para o Anthony da importância do título da UFC Leste, se ele acha realmente importante ou não. Ele mencionou que ele, assim, o que deu a entender, tá, gente? Assim, não foi diretamente, ele não falou, não ligo para o título da UFC Leste, mas não me pareceu que ele tá tão, ele não se importa, assim, campeão da UFC Leste, tá? Mas ele quer a vantagem nos playoffs, ele não quer dar nenhum momento, né, nenhuma vantagem para o New England Patriots de chegar nos playoffs sendo o atual campeão da UFC Leste, ele não quer que o Patriots possa se gabar de falar, nós não ganhamos a divisão um ano de Covid e tal, mas já voltamos, já recuperamos a divisão e tal. Então ele não quer dar esse gostinho nenhum ao Patriots e aos seus fãs, e não quer deixar de ter um mando de campo nos playoffs, né? Ainda que seja só no wild card. Então, para isso, ele quer muito essa vitória hoje, esse título da UFC Leste, mas não necessariamente, campeão da UFC Leste, tá? E eu falei que eu quero, sim, esse título, se der para o Bills ganhar todo ano, eu quero que ganhe todo ano, não tenha dúvidas, tá? Não quero ver torcedor do Patriots podendo se gabar de que voltaram a ganhar a UFC Leste, já ganharam por muito tempo, tomara que nunca mais ganhe, né? E é isso, preocupado um pouco pelo clima, por essa situação que envolve o jogo, mas vamos ver, torcer para os Bills conseguir mais uma vitória, chegar como campeões da UFC Leste e aos playoffs fortes e saudáveis, né? Tomara que ninguém se machuque, a gente possa chegar bem saudável nesses playoffs. Beleza, galera? Vou dar uma passada rapidamente aqui. O Marcelo comentou do Maracanaço, né? Maracanaço pela expectativa da cidade. Verdade, Marcelo. Nesse sentido, sim, né? Até o Buffalo Bills.com ali, o perfil do Buffalo Bills no Twitter postou um vídeo lá do último título da UFC Leste em casa. Nesse sentido, sim, não tenha dúvidas, né? Vamos lá, o Marcelo ainda aqui, ó. Falam muito Dable nos Jaguars ou Bears, só rumores ou algo real? O Jaguars já está fazendo entrevistas, tá? Eu não lembro agora se ele já... Mas o Dable está nos nomes citados por Jaguars, sim, mas eu não acho que já tenha rolado pedir a permissão para entrevistá-lo. Não tenho certeza, não me recordo ao certo agora, Marcelo. Eu vi que o Jaguars já começou o processo, tá, de entrevistas. Tá? Até o ex-treinador o Bill O'Brien, ex-treinador do Texans, vai ser entrevistado. Nate Hackett, coordenador ofensivo, que foi dos Bills, do Doug Marrone, que é hoje do Packers, vai ser entrevistado. Não sei se o Dable já foi requisitado na entrevista, acho que não, mas foi mencionado que ele está, sim, candidato a esse trabalho, sim. E, cara, sinceramente, acho que seria um nome incrível para eles, tá? Tomara que não role, né? E dos comentários, acho que foi isso. Então é isso, galera. Muito obrigado a participação de todos. Vamos almoçar e vamos para o jogo, né? Horário diferente hoje. Eu volto com o pós-jogo durante a semana, provavelmente amanhã, tá? E muito legal, foi muito legal essa interação com a galera. Desculpa se eu pulei algum comentário, se não consegui perguntar tudo que tinha aí para perguntar para o Anthony, mas a interação foi legal, acho que valeu a pena. Eu acho que foi um episódio aí 33 que vai ficar aí evergreen, né? Vai ficar pelo evergreen não, mas pelo menos para essa semana ainda vai estar válido, né? Eu acho que deu para comentar bastante coisa da temporada dos Bills em geral. Então, você que está assistindo em outro momento também pode aproveitar legal e adicionar também mais conhecimento e mais opinião sobre Bills aí. Um grande abraço a todos, um ótimo jogo e que a gente consiga vir para o pós-jogo aqui como campeões, bicampeões da NFC Leste, né? Para esse pós-jogo de amanhã. Valeu, galera. Um grande abraço. Até a próxima. Go Bills!